Welcome to Get Wisdom Live with Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. What if God was also a co-host? What if the historically rare ability to question God directly and get profound answers back has been rediscovered? What would God say to today's sophisticated but deeply troubled world? Get Wisdom Live is here to share those answers with you. Here is Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. Welcome to another episode of Get Wisdom Live. I'm Brian Kelly, along with Get Wisdom founder and director, Carl Mollison. This month, Creator discusses recognizing and changing faulty beliefs. Sounds like an interesting title, Carl, but there's a lot to this, I understand.
Well, this is something that has a huge impact on all of us for many reasons. Some of it is personal, some of it is societal, some of it is otherworldly. We're going to touch on all of those things. But the fundamental thing people don't really appreciate fully, and including the healthcare system, the psychologists, the therapists, when they're wanting to help someone change how they operate, how they think and feel, and go through their life therapeutically, they're going to bump into many beliefs that person has. And I don't think they address this very effectively. And the therapeutic techniques aren't really able to change beliefs within people. And that's our hard wiring.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're able to do with divine assistance is belief replacements.
Yeah.
And if you have limiting beliefs, you're in trouble. And we all have them. We have hundreds of limiting beliefs. We learn through hard knocks, through life experience. There's also an overlay of manipulation coming from interlopers in our world. We've got dark spirits who possess people. It's very common. They're a source of evil. That's where evil comes from. And there are extraterrestrials as well who are manipulating us with mind control. So I know this is a lot to throw at people
Yeah.
kind of out of the blue, but it's the backdrop here. And for the first time, we have something that can take this on and help to correct it. Not that it's quick or easy, but this is an advance for humanity we're going to be talking about. So we have to kind of jump in the deep end of the pool here, and so that's kind of the backdrop. So I hope you can follow that.
Well, we need something, Carl, because anybody who's qualified, and that means anybody who breathes and has a heartbeat, has challenged other people's beliefs and gotten nowhere. So changing people's beliefs is extremely difficult, if not borderline impossible. So we need divine assistance on this. So I'm eager to hear what Creator has to say today. You ask Creator, perhaps one of the biggest problems facing humanity is quote unquote engineered complacency. What is the fundamental state of human curiosity when suppressed by mind control manipulation? Is the curiosity restrained or actually destroyed? Because if merely restrained, then once the mind control tapers off or ceases altogether, will curiosity explode within the masses of humanity? Or will there be something akin to cellular memory working that will keep a kind of learned self suppression going even when the overt mind control comes to an end? What can Creator tell us?
All right, and this is what I channeled from Creator. These are Creator's words. You are close to the truth of things here in your question, in considering there might be long-lasting consequences of this enforced complacency via manipulation of the mind. This is, in large measure, the corruption of inner beliefs. It is a false world imparted that makes people complacent because they are defended by a false sense of security. This is gained from coming to believe via manipulation, not through life experience or common sense. There is nothing much for them to do other than glide along, that things will fall into place. Nothing is needing their scrutiny or to be agonized over. It will all work out. There's nothing to see here. It's safe to move along, to go back where you to what you were doing, and so forth. When you were in situations that normally would be alarming and call for an earnest and protracted follow up to get to the bottom of things. This is what makes complacency, arranged via mind control, so very insidious and potentially devastating, because it is incapacitating in a very direct and practical way. If the populace does not get aroused at a sign of danger, you are sitting ducks. And that is very much what is going on in the world. While half the world is falling apart, the other half is just seeing to their usual entertainments, social media banter, and ordinary everyday pursuits. We understand people are not used to thinking of themselves as being in a position of power, authority, and needing to act personally when they see something wrong. But for the majority of the citizenry to simply go along with whatever happens and not register a complaint is not at all normal. So, what happens is people are manipulated to change their very mind into a semblance of their true nature, but without the ability to discern what rises to a serious level of negativity. So, it is seen as a threat to the person and motivate them to take action of some kind. When people are altered in their beliefs via mind control, it is very effective because it is permanent. Beliefs are the bedrock, the hard wiring of your personal foundation, defining who you are, what you think, and how you will feel about it. Once the beliefs are altered, you literally are transformed to some degree to be different, act different, think and feel different. And when the mind control manipulation goes on and on over months and years, there can be quite a transformation indeed. So, unfortunately, this will not just fade if the interlopers were decide to leave you alone, but there is a way out through divine healing. That will not be available to most people because they are non believers. Or even if believers in the divine will still be in ignorance that a problem even exists, let alone what to do about it in a practical, effective way. This has been worked out through your channel and his efforts to devise the Lightworker Healing Protocol and the follow on deep subconscious memory reset process. The two together can powerfully change the nature of beliefs held in all levels of the mind, at least over time. There is no other practical way to do this. You will not, in most cases, even know the specific beliefs that are forming your new way of thinking. So, even if someone can notice and report to you you are acting out of character, you will be helpless to trace what has happened and find your way back to your old self. This is why the protocols for this divine healing work are a genuine breakthrough because they provide the means for undoing this evil manipulation of human thought, the brainwashing that has been done to your culture and the citizens individually all across the world. Few have been spared, and although the impact is to varying degrees, all have modifications and alterations within them because this has been ubiquitous and working relentlessly to constrain and subjugate you.
Well, I can speak to this from personal experience. I've always been a bit of a skeptic in terms of our safety, and so I've been a bit more cautious than the people that I normally associate with. So I worry about things like power outages, and I worry about weather, and being a little bit prepared. Putting away some extra stuff, having enough food on hand for at least a few weeks. That kind of thing. And whereas all my friends and family, they think I'm crazy, even though I'm not extreme in any of these regards. It's just a little bit of preparedness. And they think that they're exercising common sense. And the problem is that I've been this way for, gosh, 40 years, Carl. I started behaving this way when I was 20. It's been doing my whole life. I'm 60 now. And I've had a number of friends that I've had since childhood. And they've been constantly rewarded in being right for 40 years because they haven't done anything and they've never had to do anything. And so they think they're the wise, smart ones because they've never wasted their time or money or expense or effort, right? They've always been right. And they'll always be right in their own outlook. So, yeah, I can see where this is a huge problem.
Well, everything is belief driven because this is how we're built. It's how we're constructed to have a set of beliefs about things. That's the hard wiring, that's the programming. And a lot of it is done subliminally through our technology. Every time you look at a screen, you're getting propaganda beamed to your deep subconscious through those technologies. It sounds crazy, but this is why the world is so bizarre right now. It's getting worse. The
Yep.
programming is getting more vicious, more precise in ramping people's passions up to a level where they'll do crazy things.
Yep. Yep.
And it's a strategy of divide and conquer. So they'll take someone with political leanings to the left, make them an avid, rabid leftist, and they'll take people who kind of lean to the right and make them a rabid right winger if they can.
Sure. Yeah.
And those people believe totally their perspectives, and you can't change them.
Yeah.
And that's why everything's at loggerheads. That's why everything is gridlock and in conflicts and so much bad blood, and you just see this bubbling up universally
Well,
across
even in
the
the example I gave, you have these hardcore preppers that are preparing for the end of the world, and then you have other people that do nothing. And there's like nobody in between, right? There's nobody that's like striking a balance. I think I'm one of the few in the world to do that. It's like either you're on one end of the spectrum or you're on the other. So we see this in every walk of life. It's really quite insidious,
yeah,
as you say.
and and both sides of every issue, whatever it is,
Yeah.
politics, religion, ways of conducting business, every aspect, those warring factions will each believe totally that they're right.
Oh yeah.
Because it's beliefs. It's automatic. You just go to your beliefs and that's it. That's reality to you.
Yeah.
And so this is a conundrum. And so we're talking about a way to help modulate this. So we better keep moving here.
We better keep moving. Got a lot to go through. You ask creator, we know the deep subconscious is the principal repository of hidden and not consciously recognized beliefs. How much is conscious belief built on a substrate of unconscious beliefs? When someone says, for instance, I'm an atheist, as an expression of their belief that God does not exist, can such a conscious belief survive if deep subconscious memory reset change the underlying unconscious beliefs underpinning the conscious ones? Can the divine even change the underlying beliefs if the conscious mind has embraced a summation or capstone of the underlying beliefs? What can Creator tell us?
All right, this is what Creator answers. Your complex question illustrates quite nicely that this is a complex issue, a multi-component array of differing mind levels, each with functional roles and comprising a portion of your being, and will influence a range of things accordingly. But no one level can manage to do everything, nor can it protect the other levels or heal them, because the mind itself has been distorted through manipulation done long ago by genetic modification. That has left the largest part of your mind, what your channel has discovered, in the form of the deep subconscious, cut off from conscious awareness entirely. It is an unknown part of your mind within you, nor can your deep subconscious reach and influence the conscious level because of this disconnect. This leads to all kinds of complications as well as limitations in how you function and the nature of issues that arise, because so much of your consciousness is a kind of orphan stranded on an island. Its reach is more powerful intuitively than other levels of the mind, and it can see the Akashic records of all you have lived in other lifetimes. But this only leads to concern and worry, fearing bad times will come again, because historically everyone has lived many difficult lives and has the wounds to prove it. The deep subconscious can be in quite a state of fear and other negative emotions but it does have a link to the body physically to produce feelings. And this explains why so many have angst or existential anxiety. And many as well have quite serious levels of difficulty with their emotions being in a state of severe chronic anxiety or even depression without having a clue many times why that would be so. There are many assumptions made through the assistance of psychologists probing to find out what someone's life is like and then guiding them to see associations that provide a rational explanation for their emotional struggle. Many times, those assumptions are just wrong because they're only looking at surface concerns while being completely unaware of the deep subconscious and all that it is wrestling with. So, this also illustrates why the understanding of the workings of the mind have been such a mystery and inexplicable because of the irregularities, primarily that the mind is volatile and unpredictable largely. And people seem to be so neurotic, such that very, very few are considered normal by psychologists, but simply in varying states of disarray for which they have developed ways to compensate so they can get along in society. So, what you were touching on here in bringing into the open this complicated picture of multiple levels of the mind and a division of labor goes beyond that to really be, in some ways, divisive and a fractionation of the being into functional components that may or may not even be on the same page. This changes everything because one level of the mind can harbor beliefs not held by other levels of the mind. So, depending on which level of the mind is uppermost and running things at the moment, those beliefs it accesses will determine how things go. But inevitably, there will arise inner conflicts as differing levels of the mind weigh in about what might be going on and doing planning and reacting to unfolding life events, particularly when there are challenges and stressful circumstances. Because the mind is not a smooth running integrated system, but comprised of somewhat separate compartments, there will be a bumpy ride because things will not go seamlessly and smoothly. So, this has many practical consequences where someone can have a belief about something on a conscious level that differs from what is believed deep within. And it is ironic that some of the most troubled individuals are troubled more on the conscious level than within the deep subconscious, the largest part of the mind. Yet, because the conscious self is what a person perceives, the thoughts and beliefs underlying them become all important because they will govern moment to moment decisions that determine the course of life events for the most part. And that can be quite limiting because the conscious awareness is such a small part of the being. It is largely working from information in the upper subconscious, floated to it from both short term and long term memory, as well as beliefs to guide and shape the thoughts that come. So there is an overall intention perceived by the conscious self to some degree, but this too is largely subconscious and only witnessed and experienced by the conscious mind, not as the originator, but as the recipient of what the overall consciousness has decided will happen, if only milliseconds before, depending on what particular thought one might pick to analyze and illustrate the workings of perception. The reality is that much of what comprises your being is stored close at hand in cellular memory within the brain. This is not the largest repository of memory, but it is a very practical and important part of your makeup because it is the first go to in conducting thinking and acting on your intentions. So, important ideas and important information will be housed more in an accessible way within the cellular consciousness for ready reference, and this adds to efficiency. The problem becomes when that cellular memory develops faulty beliefs about things it struggles with and perhaps cannot manage well. When things get out of hand, they may well get out of control as well. Many false assumptions and faulty thinking as well will occur at the level of cellular memory because sometimes negative experiences are taken to heart and become emblazoned on that memory bank. Being ranked is quite important because of their impact. And if poorly understood, false conclusions may be made about what has happened and why, and that begins a process of distortion of reality that can grow and worsen over time. This is how much human prejudice gets started and can grow over time to become a major driving force and agenda. And it also explains why it is a force to reckon with, because it is not simply a choice. It is a belief system, and beliefs are definitive. They rule your definition of reality, and it is not possible to go against them for any length of time. People who are delusional are acting on faulty beliefs stored largely in cellular consciousness. While on deeper levels of the mind, their thinking may well be much clearer and even normal. So, this is a complicated arena and discussion, both, but we are simply wanting to illustrate there are very important issues to be understood in order to advance as a species and particularly help oneself overcome personal problems and challenges of all kinds. And this will point the way to better answers for self improvement as well as improvement of society in general.
Well, you're certainly right. This is certainly a complex topic. But from personal experience, I can certainly appreciate the idea of different parts of the mind at conflict with each other. And I have the perfect example in my Aikido practice that I pursued for almost a decade. I basically hung up the practice following COVID shortly thereafter and haven't gone back to it. But even before COVID, for well over a year, I felt like I should get out of it. And yet I had so many things in my conscious belief system that I thought it was good for me and that it was, keeping me fit and giving me self protection skill. Had great friends, good companionship. I mean, there was a lot of good things about it, but at the same time, I was felt like I shouldn't be doing this, and that could be intuition. It could be my deep subconscious, maybe alarmed at the prospect of getting injured doing Aikido. So I know this eternal struggle that we all do, right? And I'm nothing special. We all have these kind of wars within us.
Well, and I can attest as well from my personal experience that this isn't just theory. This is an explanation of things I've observed directly in working with people, all kinds of people, and using channeling to talk with their deep subconscious mind. And I've done this with some people who are diagnosed schizophrenics. And their thinking, if you talk to them consciously, is quite delusional, but their deep subconscious is not. So this shows you that this whole divide and conquer paradigm has gone into our very being and our makeup, and it's wreaking havoc. But this explains why people can't be budged from crazy ideas, from points of view and ways of being that work against them, and maybe they're shunned because of. They can't change themselves. It's their hard wiring. And the same with all this prejudice. It's beliefs. It's all beliefs. And you can talk yourself out of it consciously. Oh, I'm not a racist. I'm not going to malign people of a different uh, racial background than myself. But down below, there will be beliefs programmed into you,
Yeah,
and we all carry them.
yeah.
That's why sometimes it can leak out unexpectedly and people will do something they look back on with embarrassment. It's the same kind of thing. This is a basic paradigm and dilemma of every human being. We all have these issues.
And we don't even know what the origin of those beliefs are. It could be past life experience and karmically induced. But it can also be mind control manipulation or
Yeah.
both, right?
Yes. And
So,
often both.
and often, sure, one enhances the other. So, ugh. You ask Creator, we know the divine cannot act unilaterally to change beliefs in the deep subconscious. Can healing requests by third parties give the divine the needed license it needs to make belief changes, even and in spite of firmly held conscious beliefs of the individual client? And if so, how can that be ethical?
Okay, well, we're about to break new ground here because we've figured out a way to do this and do it ethically, morally, and spiritually in alignment. So this is what Creator says, can we go in and change someone's beliefs through the divine? Creator says this is indeed a quite important question because it is pointing towards your deliverance from the struggle of being human, all too often causing pain and suffering and lifelong struggles and impairment that can be life limiting and a devastating and disastrous outcome. We created humanity to be an independent extension of our consciousness, bestowed with free agency and free will to work independently much of the time and only check in with us at intervals, to have quite a degree of freedom to go where you will and make your own choices how you spend your time and what you apply yourselves towards in making a living and finding a useful role to play in the world. This has led to the rise of evil that has corrupted everything it touches to some degree. This is why there are so many troubled people, why life is so hard, and why even self control is demanding and uncertain for many, at least at times. In describing the fact you have separate functional compartments or levels of the mind, even with some crosstalk that is possible, means it will be complicated business to stay in alignment and have a stable, happy existence because there are so many ways to fail and have complications arise. The most difficult obstacle and challenge is the formation of faulty beliefs that are negative and self limiting. It is creating a cage to live within and will lead to many consequences. When you act on faulty beliefs, you will be committing many errors of judgment, and those mistakes will get noted and count against you. Most will see it as personal limitations, and it might be subtle or profound in the degree to which others might see you as lacking good judgment, reliability, wherewithal, and personal effectiveness. Because so much of the difficulty with the rough edges of a personality and the composite nature of belief systems is, in effect, a stable and permanent feature once it is established. This makes a person relatively refractory to outside influence of any kind. This is why so many criminals are incorrigible and cannot be rehabilitated. It is why prejudice thinking never really dies out, because people cannot change their beliefs readily, even if they want to. They are part of the interior warp and woof of the mind, and once established, cannot simply be ignored, at least reliably and consistently. Sooner or later, people will show their true colors, and most will not bother to seek personal change because what they think and feel seems natural to them, and they will not be inclined to try to be different just to please you. For those who are struggling with something they feel is wrong with themselves, a kind of false assumption is when there is a state of anxiety or other emotions and behaviors that are harmful and self destructive, there will at least be a motive promoting change. What has been needed all along is a way to get divine assistance when people reach a dead end like this and are unable to help themselves. This is also the reason why it is so difficult to get effective, long lasting benefits from psychotherapy. The desire to please a therapist of a client having learned through many sessions how their way of thinking differs from the mainstream, even when they fervently want to please their therapist and show evidence of progress, may find it impossible to override inner beliefs and create a state of lasting change in how they think, act, and feel, because the old beliefs will continue to rule the roost, so to speak, and true lasting change will be difficult to accomplish and impossible in many circumstances. So, the best one ends up achieving is a kind of additional compensation because they've learned how to be on their best behavior, to fit in and get along, at least for a span of time. And doing so again and again may allow them to get by, despite periodic regression to old ways of thinking and acting, because the beliefs will come to the fore and take charge. Your channel has figured out a way to engineer belief replacements, courtesy of the divine realm, within the protocols for healing he has worked out over the years now. Others have established the precedent for requesting Creator of all that is to do belief replacement for those inner beliefs that are counterproductive and really faulty thinking. But heretofore, those ways of requesting belief replacement required a way to find out and identify the problem beliefs themselves. And because they are deep within the being, regardless of which level of the mind you are working with, it can be a challenge to pinpoint. And at best, only the uppermost levels of the mind are accessible to probing and testing done through the conscious level of the mind for the communication with the facilitator of the belief work. This leaves out entirely the deep subconscious, the largest part of the mind, from consideration and accessibility to healing help. This is why the Lightworker Healing Protocol and Deep Subconscious Memory Reset shine, because they not only can reach the deep subconscious, they are constructed in a way to effectively request that Creator identify where the most troubling and problematical beliefs are and do the necessary negotiations with the client's mind directly for a positive belief replacement in their stead. This is ethical to do because it is never done in a vacuum unilaterally as an outside manipulation, unasked for, and with no permission. Even though it will happen below conscious awareness of the recipient, Creator will negotiate both with the higher self at a soul level and the deep level of the mind needed in the majority of cases to identify and replace problem beliefs of all kinds that are a major stumbling block and a cause of life difficulty. This is a game changer. It is not only effective, but ethical, and is a true blessing in making possible healing and repair for even the most troubled individuals. It can be a project to take on and reach an effective resolution for something like schizophrenia, but is doable for the first time. This is because, with the right knowledge, awareness, and understanding of how to work with the divine realm directly, for the first time, people can bring about an effective answer through divine assistance for not only a whole array of personal problems and emotional difficulties, but even severe mental illness.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. But it's good news because we've talked about, and we've for 7 years, Carl, we've talked about how intractable the problem of beliefs is, and to have a means by which Creator can go in with our permission and do the deep level detective work to ferret out the problems without us having to do that at a granular level, and then be able to apply a healing solution. That is indeed a game changer, Carl.
Well, and it's been long in coming, and a lot of hard work on my part to probe and ask and explore and work with people and get feedback and go back to Creator and get a kind of analysis of what's happening and why. And I was told over and over and over and over for years now, free will rules.
Mhm.
That's the arrangement. You're in a free will, free agency paradigm, and humans are in charge. We can't go against human choice. So if people believe they're doomed, if they believe they're inadequate, if they believe they're faulty, if they believe no one will like them, if they believe they're unlovable, they believe God forgot about them, or if they believe God does not exist, we have to stay away. And this
Yeah,
is a conundrum. The biggest conundrum there can be to
right.
not have God in your life. But people do this all the time, and locking God out through their beliefs, their negative, self-limiting beliefs. We have hundreds of these, all of us.
Well, the key thing is that once again, creator cannot act unilaterally, right? Creator needs us to make the requests for this approach to take effect.
Exactly. This is the workaround. With us as an advocate to ask in the right way for this process to be done, we unleash divine power for the first time. People have been praying for these sort of things for years, but that doesn't get you anywhere because you're not able to ask in the right way to get over the the
Yeah.
hurdle of free will, and you're not using your free will to make a direct, authoritative, knowledgeable, specific, high level request for exactly what you need. And that's been a learning curve we've been on without knowing it.
Yeah.
So, a few of us coming along, trying to make the world better and sort these things out is what it's taken to get to this turning point. But we're here now. And finally, we can unleash the divine in a more powerful way than ever before.
It's really not very much unlike picking a lock. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the amount of sensitivity and awareness and knowledge that has to go into being able to successfully figure out the combination to unlock the capability. That's what this has all been about, and I think that's a decent analogy. That's how difficult this has been to get to the solution.
Yeah, and I've gotten that metaphor from Creator
Yeah,
in regard to dealing with people that we're our own worst enemies, and this is why. And Creator will use that sort of imagery. Well, as soon as they decide that, they're helpless, they're putting handcuffs on us
yeah,
because we can't go against their belief, that they're helpless.
right,
And that this is what so many times people do to themselves
yeah.
and then do to others as well, and their judgments and misguided notions of all
It,
kinds.
and this really speaks more than anything to the requirement for partnership, not with the divine, but with the divine with us.
Yes.
Right? I mean, turn it around the other way. Creator needs our partnership in order to intervene because unilaterally the divine is off limits. Is not going to do that. So we need creator, but creator needs us to solve this problem
Yeah.
additionally.
Yes, and this has been the problem with organized religion all through the ages. It's been corrupted to disempower people, to make us believe we're supplicants, we have to be humble and meek and go to our knees in reverence and not ask for very much. And maybe we'll get something, maybe we won't, but we can't exceed and be selfish, and all these notions that teach us that we're worthless at the outset. We're born in sin. All those ideas are a disempowerment. And there's really a God up there who loves all of us
Yeah.
unreservedly. But
Yeah.
we're the ones who don't like ourselves and don't like other people, and we get corrupted by that negativity. And
Yeah.
that's a deliberate rise of evil behind it. And and God has to let that happen and has. So we have to be part of the solution. And this is it. This is the answer.
Yeah.
Changing things fundamentally.
Absolutely. You ask creator, doubt and feelings of guilt for the vast majority of humans and probably all sentient beings are profoundly uncomfortable feelings. They compel some sort of response on the part of the conscious self. That response will be either self reflection or projection, quote unquote, due to an unwillingness to ascribe any responsibility to the self. A challenge to deeply held beliefs from outside the self must be identified and destroyed, either figuratively or literally. This appears to be the driving force behind almost all forms of censorship. What can Creator tell us?
Well, the world is increasingly eager to censor. It's
Yes.
coming from everywhere. The cancel culture and all of the friction and divisiveness and all levels of the institutions and society and the governance and on and on. So this is what Creator tells us. Well, this is reducing some of the more serious problems in life to a simple cause and effect mechanism. This is certainly a robust one that has great force as an influencer, and the consequences can be grave when people find themselves unable to control and limit inner negativity in their self talk and the feelings it gives rise to. Given the vulnerability you have from living in a physical body that is fragile, you are imbued with a survival instinct and a quite strong inner warning system via the stress response that serves to give you feedback on a visceral level when danger is at hand. You have, in addition, in most cases, a well developed ego that wants to prevail and seeks control over at least your own life and affairs, and may seek to influence and control others to minimize risks and create opportunities to benefit the self. This makes the ego a mixed blessing, as those too egotistical will be roundly disliked by others because no one likes being a servant to someone who is self involved and quite willing to impose on others in a selfish way. The more common situation is simply having inner doubts and reservations about one's own self worth, competence, and standing compared to others. Because beliefs are the bedrock and the operating system of the mind in terms of control, as they are defining things, being challenged by someone else holding opposing views may be seen as quite a threat indeed, and is often felt quite strongly. When beliefs are challenged, there will be little chance of finding a solution readily because beliefs are fixed. So, when one has had the experience of clashing with someone else's beliefs and perspectives and saw how difficult it can be to win a test of wills, many will become quite leery if their beliefs are challenged by someone with differing outlook and simply won't engage. Unfortunately, all too often, people may have such a strong emotional reaction to having their beliefs challenged, they will go into attack mode and engage in argument. Because this is one belief challenging an opposing belief of another person, such clashes are rarely fruitful unless people have the maturity and self discipline to set aside their feelings and think about how to create an arrangement where people can live and let live. So at least they will coexist without fighting. That is the best one can hope for in most cases because beliefs are so ingrained and inflexible. So, this is another illustration of the widespread and challenging difficulty posed by the complex nature of life. In actuality, no two souls are alike. So, this alone creates many opportunities for differing perspectives. If one is on guard all the time and has a low tolerance for differing beliefs in others, this is a prescription for conflict. So, the basic dilemma here is not that beliefs are powerful, but that so many beliefs are a corruption of the being engineered by outside malevolent consciousness, done through mind control and the corrupting influence of so many people with faulty thinking and beliefs, carrying out all kinds of negative conduct and influencing those who witness the carnage. The whole strategy of the darkness to subjugate and harm you relies on divide and conquer. You can see now when those divisions are reinforced by differing beliefs, that it is easy to create warring factions that may never come together because the gap in belief is so wide it becomes unworkable. And that is why it is so effective to undermine the world through mind control.
Well, this speaks to, why this innovation coming out of this is so important because the beliefs are instilled by an outside agency that is not even human in many cases. And but yet once we embrace it or get used to it ourselves, the divine has to step aside and allow that to happen because we've embraced it either wittingly or especially unwittingly. It doesn't matter. Ignorance is no excuse in this regard. So in some ways it seems like unfair because you end up getting stuck, but then there's no way to get unstuck. And now we have a way to get unstuck. So this is quite profound.
Indeed.
Uh, Sorry, Carl. You asked Creator, can Creator share with us a profound success story of a fallen angelic being successfully undergoing rehabilitation and what precipitated their quote unquote seeing the light? How profound was their struggle with self doubt and guilt, and how did that finally result in a full healing resolution?
We do healing work on dark spirits all the time with our protocols, as well as human beings. So we know quite a bit about this. And this is what Creator speaks to and what's going on behind the scenes as we launch this healing work. Creator says, this is a difficult story to tell for adequate understanding by human beings because angelics have a quite different lineage, history, and set of issues, living in a different dimension, even with differing motivations, goals, and personal perspectives. But the general phenomenon involved in what befalls the angelics to result in a fall from grace through misalignment is indeed very much involved with corruption of inner beliefs. So, this puts in stark relief why it is all important to have inner beliefs that line up, that fit with reality, and in particular, our beliefs that are in divine alignment, because that will provide the wherewithal to stay in good graces with the divine and with the self as well. When you are in divine alignment, you will love yourself because the divine is all about love. Love to give as well as share among a community of souls. The more love is drained away, the more shallow one becomes and the more self serving. And that is a slippery slope leading to the rise of evil. So, those angelics who have turned dark through being disconnected from the divine and turned away from love and light have been living tooth and claw in competition with one another for sources of energy for survival and almost lost the ability to feel anything good whatsoever. As you can imagine, it is a long way back from such a plight, but it is very much the saga of becoming, in effect, a psychopath, living through ego alone in a loveless existence. It is the virtual opposite of divinity, which is the sharing of love by a community of souls. The fallen angelic is an island of the self alone, only able to survive through exploiting others, and again, left with only power and its expression as a reward. And that alone will never satisfy the soul. So it is a meager ration indeed. The way back to divine alignment, step by step, involves to a significant degree a reworking of inner beliefs, as well as changing soul attributes to reawaken what has become stunted and greatly diminished or even absent, all the positive qualities that love brings in its many flavors. The ability to trust the self, trust others, trust in the Almighty, the ability to value the self and value others without jealousy and resentment. All of the sources of strength expressed without wanting to gain an advantage over others or worse, harm them. But to stand strong from feeling in the flow of love is the greatest state of existence one can achieve and becomes totally foreign to the fallen angelic. So there is a major reworking of the being and very analogous to what a human psychopath needs to happen to save them from becoming an outcast. This is a step by step process of learning and growth, almost like starting from scratch, and requires clearing many self limiting negative beliefs to make room for a new belief capability so perspectives can once again envision and align with a path to the divine way of being. What you are seeing basically in the psychopath is that they are not a whole person, and when there are pieces missing, that will have consequences, and the solution not obvious because the cause cannot be seen. The extraterrestrials lack self awareness because they lack the wherewithal to even sense, let alone know and understand their shortcomings. Given they are empty inside, they will have had to find a way to compensate, and this they do through ego. So their ego grows to fill the void left by an absence of love and compassion, tenderness, caring, and all of the other capabilities that give rise to respect, dedication, loyalty, and many other attributes. These are stunted among psychopaths and may be functionally absent. The ego acts as a kind of imposter who uses power and control to manipulate in order to get what it wants. So, a psychopath who is challenged will indeed find a state of being endowed intolerable because it is too large a threat to their stability. So, their willingness and shocking disregard for consequences may well lead them to harm others for what most would consider a slight transgression or simply just holding differing views and being unwilling to accept an opposing view. This is what makes authoritarian leaders so dangerous because they are quite frequently sociopaths who are ruthless, heartless, and savage. They get away with it because they know how to lie convincingly and wear a false front in public, knowing others can be better manipulated if they are fooled by a charming demeanor to like and go along with the autocrat. Eventually, something breaks because the differing beliefs of the leader and followers will create doubt, uncertainty, and a rift of some kind, leading to unrest and challenges to authority. While the average person is more in a fog and living in a kind of hapless state of ignorance, they are nonetheless not suffering greatly because they don't know better. The psychopath knows something is missing, but not what to do about it. They will be unable to trust others as they only value themselves because they lack that soul attribute. And this is why doubt can lead quickly to a destructive impulse, giving rise to quite damaging actions. Because people with a differing view are seen as a challenge to authority and personal safety.
Well, this is a sobering reminder that psychopaths are extremely dangerous and difficult to deal with, and Creator is underscoring that, and that's essentially what the fallen angelics are. They're all psychopaths, extreme ones. And Creator is, pointing out that there's hope for their rehabilitation, but it's going to be a long road and take step by step. They didn't become this way overnight, and they're not going to be able to come back to their original self overnight either, Carl.
Well, and the saddest thing and more relatable, I think, for the average listener today is that it's the humans you're more aware of and bump into and you see in action. And just as the more common dilemma that's shared in our TV screens on a daily basis is the consequences of choices made by autocratic rulers, even in democratic nations, because the people in charge are usually people with a lesser morality and they tend to be on this spectrum, and they're dangerous because they want power, and they'll be ruthless in going after it, and they'll walk the talk seemingly, and they'll smile convincingly, but they're serving themselves and their cronies and in a selfish goal. So this is what makes the world work so poorly, because it's run poorly, and that is orchestrated to happen. So this all traces back to what's wrong with us and our fellow human beings and those manipulating us. All of us are in this dilemma, and we go round and round in this struggle, and the answer is divine healing.
Absolutely. You ask Creator, how can empowered prayer, the Lightworker Healing Protocol, Deep Subconscious Memory Reset, and the Divine Life Support Service, using these tools, successfully heal the interlopers in light of what Creator shared with us in answer to the questions asked for today's show?
All right, Creator says, this is a most important question, and we're delighted to be in the position of being able to impart great wisdom here as a reward for your diligence as a channeler to construct these fine tools for healing and grow to learn and understand what is at stake for all of humanity and the interlopers as well, who have humanity in the crosshairs and want your demise. This has been long needed, this ultimate answer for the rise of evil. You were created as a species to take on evil and set it right. But the requirement to do so was the need to learn and understand what evil is, where it comes from, why that is so, and how best to counter it when it has made inroads and altered the very being of so many who are contributing to an ongoing saga of increased depravity, subjugation, and suppression of worlds, yours included. You have long been told now that healing the interlopers is the answer for saving humanity. You now know, through much diligence and scholarship in your endless probing questions to us, that it will not be easy nor quick. So we are working behind the scenes to create a pause in their evil aims, knowing it can give you enough of a breather to allow human healing to proceed in a much more rapid and effective way. In the context of your questions in this session, we have wanted to make clear that the inability to have divine assistance in identifying distorted thinking based on faulty inner beliefs, as well as inadequate expression or a distortion of soul attributes, are a fundamental mechanistic explanation for human mistakes, poor choices, self destructive acts, and other directed actions, such as war. The dilemma all along through human history was a poor understanding of this fundamental makeup of human psychology and how the mind works to organize what is learned and combines with the built-in imperatives to strive and flourish. While those drives are all important for feeding the soul, if the striving is based on faulty assumptions and lies, providing false teachings, this will distort the inner beliefs, corrupt thinking, and misdirect a person into blind alleys, and worse, the harm it causes the self and others as well, because so much energy will be devoted to faulty pursuits of a lower order and will likely backfire to worsen things for the self and for others. Because beliefs and soul attributes that constitute the character and the wherewithal as human beings are your core nature being expressed in your current incarnation, they are the most important determinants of your fate. How well you do during your life and the outcomes you will reach, good or bad. When that central core is corrupted, all bets are off in how you will fare. This is why most people make little or no progress over an entire incarnation and will often end up further behind from having been wounded in such a way that it undermines future incarnations from the karmic baggage it creates. You will be responsible for and will come back around to you through the law of karma and act as a kind of dead weight on your progress. It may well rekindle prior patterns that are destructive, and round you go, reliving the same folly. To break free usually requires divine help because the human approaches to dealing with problems of the mind and of the soul are too superficial in their reach to bring about fundamental change. That is why the Lightworker Healing Protocol and Deep Subconscious Memory Reset are true breakthroughs in providing a new way to bring a person back into alignment with their soul. Because your soul is the origin of everything about you that is human, no matter what you would like to see yourself do better with, have more of, and be capable of pursuing appropriate goals successfully, all will trace back to soul characteristics and then the beliefs you develop about how to use your wherewithal or restrict it, whether to believe in the Almighty or disbelieve, whether to believe in yourself or doubt your worth and your ability to overcome the obstacles you face, and so on. Using these healing tools will, for the first time, invoke divine assistance in the most powerful way ever before achieved. To actually be proactive in taking advantage of divine wisdom and knowledge about who you are, where you need to go, and what you need to be your best self, and then work to change you back into what your true soul expression represents. Because this requires transforming you through replacing actual inner beliefs that are faulty, it has required special arrangements to provide a workaround for the rules of engagement, requiring the divine to honor free agency and free will. Heretofore, human beings have always had the right to run amok, to even be criminals if they choose, and that will not be opposed because of free will. There has always been a reckoning through the law of karma, but that might not come for a long while, and maybe not even until a subsequent lifetime. This arrangement, at its worst, has allowed people enough rope to hang themselves with because people can indulge in selfish thoughts and behavior and even acts of depravity and seem to get away with it. This has led to a downward spiral. It is no accident that the state of affairs in your world is largely attributable to interlopers bringing this evil into your world. This is why there are such contrasts between the wrongdoers, the lost and misguided, and that majority of humans who are still decent, caring, and honorable citizens wanting fairness and goodness to be the order of the day. But even those still in decent divine alignment have their quirks and their shortcomings from wounding, and this grows worse from life to life. So it is just in the nick of time that these protocols have been devised and strengthened to reach this level of divine rescue. Together, these two protocols are the answer, the true answer for saving and healing humanity, as well as the interlopers. As is always the case, it is the limitations on the human end of things that will determine whether you can be saved, how long it will take, and whether you can avoid destruction by the interlopers while all of that is being worked on. We can tell you for the first time you are at a promising point in time, even as the urgency becomes a dire need, given the short timeline to extraterrestrial disclosure and a potential annihilation of humanity. If the current healing work continues, there will be enough human intention to draw upon as fuel for the divine to stay the hand of the aggressors and allow time for human healing. If the aliens withdraw for a time, this will remove the headwinds holding humanity back, and work with the protocols will be more effective than ever to make up for lost time and provide the healing needed to ready humanity for ascension. That is your ultimate answer, your ultimate deliverance from harm's way. All through history, you've been on a treadmill, as much a holding pattern as advancing. But gradually, we've been able to assist you in making some of the negative things that happen bring a benefit nonetheless. And that has allowed enough progress to be where you are at the moment. The revelations we have imparted through Get Wisdom are the answer for the problem of evil and the advancement of humanity and its rescue from being targeted for destruction. If humans are allowed to ascend, that healing will continue and be repurposed again and again to heal all of the interlopers, even though it will take a huge span of time. That is the most magnificent of legacies there can be, to bring back worlds from a certain self destruction so they can return to divine alignment and learn the lessons humans have gained. It is an irony of the exercise of power that it is the victims who grow wise and not the perpetrators. You have learned what suffering truly means, and by contrast, the blessings of divinity. Your would be conquerors have only learned about depravity and how to reward their egos. You will be the winners here if you keep going and work on getting healing for yourselves and loved ones and everyone beyond in this grand evolution of souls.
Well, earlier we have conversed, but this one sentence here I think is just outrageously profound and is eminently quotable, and that is, "It is an irony of the exercise of power that it is the victims who grow wise and not the perpetrators." Whoa, you talk about food for thought. That one you could you could roll over in your head for a long time and still come up with new
Well,
insights.
what comes to mind as you're saying that is the quote from the scriptures about how the meek shall inherit the earth.
Yeah,
They will
yeah.
be the wise ones. They will be the ones who see what they're missing in contrast to their spiritual core because they're still intact enough to recognize it. Whereas the perpetrators are lost. They're too far gone to have the
Yeah.
ability to love and feel goodness within themselves. So there's no room for improvement in those beings without a divine intervention. And we're the only ones equipped to bring that to them. And that is the blessing we represented as extensions of the divine. But we need to do the work. We need to get healing work done for ourselves and our loved ones, and then beyond that. And that's what these protocols are doing every day for people who sign up for our Divine Life Support subscription plan. It's the low cost way to have all these blessings.
Absolutely. So there's a number of avenues to go down. You don't have to go down them all the same time. You can get divine healing. That's first and foremost, right? Take care of the problems that you're having right in front of you, and you can work on that by signing up for our divine life support service. You can also hire a practitioner, to do LHPs for you to get to resolve some of your issues, or people that you love. You can have LHPs done on their account. Then you can become a practitioner yourself. The physician heal thyself mantra, and learn the protocol, and join us in this divine effort, divine human partnership to solve the problem of evil, Carl.
Well, all of that work being done will add to this needed quorum of human energy being deployed that's usable as fuel by the divine to change the human future and destiny. So this is divine work. It's not selfish, self-serving alone. It is divine intervention and being an instrument of the divine.
Indeed. And you can take that first step by going to getwisdom.com and checking out all the services and content that we have there. That's all for this month's Get Wisdom Live. It's been an extraordinary one, Carl. Be well, everybody.
Take care. Be well.